My mom chose her thieving husband over me. Now she wants me back to save her marriage, but I'm 2,000 miles away with dad. Let me start by introducing myself before I get into everything that went down. I'm 17 now. I actually just turned 17 a couple of months ago. I graduated from high school about a month back, and I've always been a straight-A student, the kind who works hard and keeps their head down. For the past year and 10 months, I've been living full-time with my mom. She's 38, a single mom, and she works as the head chef at one of the top Italian restaurants in our city. My parents split up when I was 10. At first, they co-parented pretty evenly, and I'd spend alternate weeks with each of them. But that changed after my dad got diagnosed with brain cancer. My dad used to run our family's trucking business, something his parents had started years ago. But once he got sick, he handed the reins over to his brother. That's when I had to stop splitting time between homes and moved in with my mom permanently. I still visited my dad regularly, but I missed living with him. The truth is, I've always felt closer to him than to my mom. My mom's always been kind of high-strung, and because of that, we've never really gotten along smoothly. Back when my parents were still married, she'd constantly argue with my dad. And after they divorced, I guess I became her new target. We've had some good moments, sure, but mostly it's been tension and bickering. Still, after my dad got sick, I didn't really have a choice. I had to live with her. So I tried to accept it and just deal with things the best I could. Lately though, things between my mom and me have gotten even worse. Most of that has to do with her new husband and the way he treats me. She got remarried 8 months ago to this guy named Mark. He's 32. They'd been seeing each other for about a year, but I didn't even know they were together until he proposed. She kept the entire relationship hidden from me. I think she kept it a secret partly because of the age difference and partly because it all happened around the time my dad got his diagnosis. Whatever the reason, she didn't tell me until the engagement, and by then, it was too late to say anything about it. I just had to roll with it. Right from the start, I didn't trust Mark. Something about him just didn't sit right with me. He acted overly sweet in this way that felt completely fake, like he was playing a part or putting on a show. Even when he was being nice to me, it felt forced, like there was something phony behind the smile. You know what I mean? The vibes were just off. Of course, I couldn't tell my mom that. If I did, she'd accuse me of trying to sabotage her relationship or say I was just being difficult. So I kept my thoughts to myself. I tolerated Mark, but I never let him get close to me. And not too long after they tied the knot, I realized my gut feeling about him was spot on. He moved in right after the wedding. Mark works as a high school football coach, so he'd usually get home way earlier than my mom. That meant we were often alone in the house together for a few hours before she came back. But strangely, he never really talked to me when we were alone. He'd just keep to himself. Then the moment my mom walked through the door, he'd suddenly become super friendly and pretend like we were best pals. It was obvious to me, and would be to anyone paying attention, that it was all an act. Anyway, one day I headed to the kitchen to grab a bite, and I heard this creaking noise coming from my mom's bedroom. Now, I knew she had a hidden locker under her bed, something only she and I were aware of. She always kept the main keys on her, and she had a backup set that she usually left with me. I never gave them to Mark. So when I saw him in the bedroom with the locker open, I instantly knew he must have stolen her keys. That locker held all kinds of valuable stuff, her wedding jewelry from when she married my dad, other expensive pieces, and several bundles of emergency cash. My mom doesn't trust bank lockers. She prefers to keep those things nearby, thinking it's safer that way. I stood there frozen, watching as Mark pulled out an entire bundle of cash and slipped it into his pocket. I couldn't move, I was so stunned. And then he turned around and saw me standing in the hallway. His face changed for a second, like he was annoyed, but then he gave me this fake smile, walked over, and casually put his arm around my shoulders like nothing happened. He led me to the living room and sat me down on the couch. That's when he said my mom had asked him to grab some cash for a work emergency and that's where he was headed. He told me not to worry and said there was no need to bring it up with her. Everything about it felt wrong, but I didn't say anything right then. Later that day, when my mom got home, I pulled her aside and said I needed to talk to her about Mark. But the second she heard his name, she shut me down completely. She didn't want to hear a single word. She told me she'd been expecting this, that eventually, I'd try to come between them. Somehow, she assumed I was going to ask her to break up with Mark and get back with my dad. I honestly have no idea why she'd think that. I never gave her that impression. In fact, I was actually relieved when she and my dad split up. Their constant fights had made our home miserable, and I was glad when they finally went their separate ways. I tried again to explain what happened, but she cut me off. She yelled at me and said if I said anything bad about Mark, she'd ground me. That really got to me. I was trying to help her, to tell her something important, and she just treated me like I was the problem. So at that point, I gave up. I figured if she wanted to be blind to who Mark really was, that was her problem. If she was going to be that taken in by his charm, then let her find out the hard way. After that, I didn't bring it up again. I just waited for her to see it for herself, but she never did. The months went by, and I started pulling away from her more and more. It felt like everything in her world revolved around Mark, and honestly, it made my skin crawl. Not just because of how she acted, but because it was him. And then, just about a week ago, my mom told me she needed to sit me down and have a serious talk. It was the weekend, and since Mark had gone out with his buddies, it was just me and my mom at home. When she told me she wanted to talk, my first thought was that something had happened to my dad. But she quickly said it wasn't about him and then started rambling on about completely unrelated stuff. I had no idea what she was trying to get at. After a while, I got tired of playing the guessing game and told her to just spit it out. That's when she suddenly blurted out that she wanted me to leave. Just like that, she said Mark told her he didn't feel comfortable around me. Apparently, I made him feel unsafe and like he wasn't welcome in the house. I mean, I already knew my mom was head over heels for this guy, but I honestly didn't see this coming. Who kicks their own kid out over their husband feeling insecure? It didn't make sense to me. The only reason Mark felt uncomfortable was because he was scared I'd tell my mom the truth about the locker, that I'd expose him for stealing. Deep down, he probably knew I saw through his little act, and he was terrified that one day my mom might finally take off her rose-colored glasses and realize who he really was. But the thing is, he had nothing to worry about, not after the way my mom had shut me down when I first tried to tell her. She made it clear that she wasn't interested in hearing anything bad about him. I hadn't said a single word to her about him since then. At that point, I was just completely over it. I didn't even bother trying to argue with her. I just said okay, got up, and started packing. My head was pounding with rage the whole time. A part of me wanted to wait for Mark to come home just so I could punch him right in the face. But then I spotted my mom's spare locker keys and came up with a better plan. While she was sitting in the living room watching TV, I quietly slipped into her bedroom. I grabbed her purse, took out the spare keys, and walked away with them. I also left a little note inside her bag that said if she wanted to know where her original keys were, she should go ask Mark. That way, he wouldn't be able to just walk away from this without consequences. Once I finished packing just my clothes, books, and a few other important things, I headed back to the living room to say goodbye. My mom looked genuinely surprised, like she hadn't expected me to actually leave the same day. That's probably why she was still glued to the TV instead of helping me pack or even pretending to care. She snapped out of it pretty fast, though. Gave me a quick hug goodbye, no tears, no emotion, nothing. It was painfully obvious that she didn't see anything wrong with what she was doing. It was like I was just some roommate leaving town, not her daughter being kicked out over some guy. So I left. I got on a bus that took me all the way to my dad's place. He lives out in the suburbs, about 2,000 miles away from where my mom lives, which was a big reason I'd been staying with her in the first place. My dad's still getting treatment, in and out of the hospital pretty often. He lives with his brother, who takes care of him. Whenever I used to visit, which I tried to do every week, I always kept things light and upbeat so he wouldn't stress about me. I missed him a lot, but I also didn't want to dump my problems on him. So I never told him anything about Mark or what was going on with my mom. Every time he asked how things were at home, I'd just smile and lie, say everything was fine, that I was doing well. But this time, I couldn't keep quiet. I had to tell him the truth. He needed to know. So I sat him down and told him everything. I didn't hold back, I walked him through everything that had happened, right up to that day. And when I got to the part about my mom kicking me out because of Mark, he got so angry his ears literally turned red. I'd never seen that happen before, and for a second, I was genuinely worried he might snap or make himself sick. He managed to keep it together, though. To calm him down, I told him about how I took the spare keys and left that note in my mom's purse. That part actually seemed to give him some peace. He told me I was smart to do that, and I could tell he was proud of me for standing up for myself. Both my dad and my uncle reassured me right away. They said I didn't need to worry about a thing. The only reason they'd ever agreed to let me live with my mom full-time in the first place was because they thought it would be easier on me. But clearly, that wasn't the case anymore. They told me I was welcome there for as long as I needed, and honestly, being there with them felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I felt safer and way more at ease. The first day, we didn't hear anything from my mom. Total silence. But the next day, she sent me a video message and it was Mark. He was sobbing, literally crying his eyes out, and apologizing for everything that had happened. He begged me to come back, said he knew he messed up by stealing from the woman who had given her all to the relationship. Right after that, my mom texted me saying the video was proof that Mark felt remorseful and that he was truly sorry for what he did. She said she'd confronted him after noticing the missing keys and reading my note, and he had no choice but to confess. So, yeah, my plan had worked. I won't lie, it felt a little satisfying to see him cry like that. But then she sent me another message, and that's when the satisfaction turned into straight-up frustration. She said she'd only forgive him if I agreed to come back. Like, what? That's when I realized just how twisted this whole thing was. She was basically trying to use me as some kind of bargaining chip. She actually thought I might come back to a place where I was either treated like I didn't exist or like I was just a burden. Neither of those was a life I wanted. And honestly, the fact that she even thought it was my decision to make was infuriating. It shouldn't have been on me at all. If Mark was in the wrong, and he absolutely was, then she should have been the one ending things. She should have apologized for how she treated me. But no. Instead, she acted like this was all part of some sick game, like I was just another piece in whatever story she was spinning. Mark might have been the one who did something awful, but my mom? She was worse. He wasn't family. She was. And she still chose him over me. That's not something I can just forgive. I really couldn't wrap my head around why my mom thought it was a good idea to leave the future of her marriage up to me. But since she decided to dump that responsibility on my shoulders, I told her flat out I wasn't coming back. If she wanted to fix things, she needed to leave Mark. Her response? She sent me another video. This time, Mark looked calmer, but he still had that pitiful, on the verge of tears look on his face. He said he understood where I was coming from, but that he loved my mom and just wanted one more chance to prove himself. It looked like he was about 2 seconds away from dropping to his knees and begging. For a moment, I did feel a little bad. But even then, I still wasn't convinced. So I told her my decision was final. That's when my mom snapped. She texted me saying I was being too harsh, that I was pushing both of them away even though they were trying to fix things for me. She made it sound like two adults had put their happiness on the line to earn my forgiveness, and I was the one being cold. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. I just left her on read. It's been 6 days since then, and every single day she's been messaging me. There's always a new video of her and Mark, apologizing, begging me to come back. She's even said she'll file for divorce just to prove how serious she is. Yesterday, she told me she'd spoken to a lawyer and even sent screenshots of their texts. In the video, Mark looked miserable. He begged me to forgive him, saying he couldn't afford to lose someone like my mother. And honestly, as much as I hate what he did, it's kind of messed up watching him get dragged through this emotional circus just because my mom can't face reality. I started thinking, yeah, he's a thief, but he's also a person. And it's like she's using him as a pawn in her game just because she's the one holding the money. It's dehumanizing. And I can't believe he's just going along with it. Through all of this, I haven't told my dad. I don't want to stress him out. He's already fighting cancer, and if he found out what was happening, he'd definitely step in and it would turn into a full-blown war. I couldn't put that on him. Still, I feel awful. I feel stuck. I didn't ask to be the judge and jury in their marriage, but here I am being forced to carry that weight like it's my job to decide what's right. And no matter what I do, it's gonna look like I broke them up. But that's not the truth. Everyone who's seen this from the outside knows that. And yet, my mom keeps trying to twist it into something it's not. I'm just trying to protect myself, and she's making me out to be the villain. Mark may not be a good person, but he's still a human being. And I can't believe he's allowing her to string him along like this just because she's richer than him. I guess love or dependence makes people do desperate things. Update 1. Hey guys, I read through all your comments on my first post, and honestly, the message came through loud and clear. I needed to talk to my dad. I've always had this tendency to try and handle things by myself, even when it's way too much. And with everything he's going through, it felt wrong to dump my problems on him. But the truth is, he's still my dad. So I finally told him everything. I told him about my mom's manipulation, how she kept pushing me to decide the fate of her marriage, and all the emotional games she and Mark had been playing. My dad wasn't having any of it. He picked up the phone and called her right away. I could hear the fire in his voice. When she tried to tell him it wasn't his business, he cut her off and said he was filing for full custody and that she wasn't going to see me again. She pushed back, of course, but both of us knew she didn't actually care about me. She just didn't want to be embarrassed. Losing custody of her only daughter would look bad, and that's all she was worried about, how she'd be perceived. If she truly loved me, she would have acted like it. But she never really tried to be a good mother. Not once. After the call, my dad sat me down and told me something I'll never forget. He said I was his daughter, his responsibility, and that I should never feel like a burden. That no matter how sick he was, he'd always be there for me. And that meant always. I cried, I won't lie. It hit me hard. For the first time in so long, I felt safe. I felt loved again. It's easy to forget what that feels like when someone like my mom and her husband are making you feel like you're in the way. Update 2: My dad went through with it, he filed for full custody. And guess what? My mom's not even getting visitation rights. I mean, I'm almost 18, so it won't matter for long, but my dad said he wanted it on paper because he doesn't trust her anymore. Not after everything she did. A couple days ago, she texted me again. Called me a selfish, manipulative brat for involving my dad even though I knew he was sick. She said I'd disappointed her and that she was glad she hadn't gone through with divorcing Mark. According to her, I was just trying to come between them, but it didn't work, and now they were stronger than ever. She actually said I didn't deserve to be her daughter. That should have hurt. But honestly, it didn't. Because I finally see her for who she really is. She failed me as a mom, plain and simple. And the reason she's lashing out now is because she knows it too, even if she'll never admit it. My maternal grandparents even tried talking some sense into her. They threatened to cut her off financially if she didn't straighten up, but she didn't care. She's that far gone for Mark. The only silver lining? My dad's allowing my grandparents to stay in my life. They've always been good to me, and they don't deserve to be cut off just because their daughter lost her way. Funny thing is, they're divorced too, but even then, they did their best to raise my mom right. Sadly, she learned absolutely nothing from them. She failed as a wife, as a mother, and even as a daughter. Update 3 today was bittersweet. My mother officially terminated her parental rights over me. I went with my dad for the signing. She showed up but didn't even look at me. Not a glance. It was like I didn't exist. I don't know how to describe how that felt. I'm sad, sure, but also relieved. I guess it's just a mix of emotions that I'm still trying to sort through. Mark wasn't there, not that I expected him to show up. Cowards never do. But it wasn't him that hurt me the most. It was her. Always her. My dad and uncle took me out to dinner afterward to cheer me up. It helped a bit. And, on a brighter note, we found out just 2 days ago that my dad's responding well to treatment. There's a real chance he might beat the cancer. If you're reading this, I'd be grateful if you could keep him in your prayers. He's my only parent now, and I don't know what I'd do without him. My uncle's amazing, but he's not my dad. And nobody else ever will be. I don't know how much time we've got together, but whatever time it is, I just want it to be filled with peace and love. That's all I ask. Thank you to everyone who's been listening, reading, and offering support. It means more than I can say.